Hi, welcome to Just Salvos. I'm Marion Weymouth. We've shared previously with Brendan and Lauren, and this is part 2 of that same topic, youth in the city. Self-harm was described by somebody and revealed on the ABC in this way. When I saw the blood, I stopped thinking about what was going on inside my head. And when this young person was interviewed and said, why did you self-harm? When I saw the blood, I stopped thinking about what was going on inside my head. That's a real window into something in the heads of youth that we need to understand. And I think that coming close, like you're attempting to do, does a lot to both prevent and to provide a link, a bridge, and prevent further damage in their lives. So
it's interesting, just on that point, the Centre for Adolescent Mental Health that's run by the University of Melbourne indicates that one of the key prevention factors from young people engaging in negative behaviour, particularly suicidal behaviour and self-harm, is by building a really strong sense of resilience for them. Yes. And they outline a number of ways that we do that. One is by building meaningful relationships with young people, and the other is by building spirituality for young people. And I think sometimes the church in general is really cautious about going down that path, but here's a secular agency, secular organisation, institution saying the way to prevent negative behaviour, one of the ways is to build resilience through enabling young people to develop and express their spirituality.
Thank you. Well, how do you think your work is making a difference in those two areas, like the relationship building, the spirituality, which fills that void, which connects people? How is your work achieving that, just in brief, You meet those people there on the streets, Lauren, and there's a lot of work goes into that. Volunteers come along to help you, no doubt. From there, what happens to some of the lives, the stories in the lives of these young people? What happens there?
Yeah, I think obviously on a Friday and Saturday night we're dealing with more crisis situations, interventions and things like that. So, it's as simple as getting someone safely home, whether, they've been disconnected from their friends or their family.
You may never see them again.
Yeah, or they've had too much to drink or whatever it might be. But I think it's just making sure that they get home safely in that instance, but also they get the right referrals. Whether or not, if something happens, we need to refer them to the hospital, the mental health ward, or whatever it might be, to take all of their concerns seriously and get them the help that they need, and then just provide them with some referrals and follow up after to ensure that happens. So just supporting them through it, encourage them to chat to, family and friends if we're concerned about them. Encourage them to chat to a counsellor or tell someone what's happened.
So back at base, let's call 614 base if you like, but it's right there in the city. Some of those referrals are possible there. You can follow up there on the spot that night if necessary, or, how is the linkage occurring there?
Yeah, we've got qualified youth workers. We've got mental health practitioners that are available, that are based at Burke Street as well.
Okay.
And we've got a wide range of agencies that we refer to as well. Yeah. And I think one of the realities is that it was picked up in the Child Safety Commissioner's report that was tabled to Parliament yesterday, is this absolute vital importance of agencies working together. Okay. And at times there's communication breakdowns, and I think what we need to do is flatten that silo mentality and strengthen communication and referral processes, and see that, some of the young people that we come across are in such significant need. One agency can't fix those problems. Yeah. We need to be working together, and I think that's a great reality for the Salvation Army as well. I think sometimes it's easy to fall into this mindset of working in our own silo, but we need to recognise that we're actually dealing with an epidemic here in our country around suicide. And if we're going to seriously tackle that issue, and as Christians I think we're obligated to do that, what we need to do is actually break down those silos and start to work together more effectively as the Salvation Army and also with other agencies.
Well, I think it's worth a visit to your place at 614. We can see the services at work there. It's obvious that there's something on the ground happening, and more than that, the partnerships which evolve from that, which are used in those services, are working in a fantastic way. but I imagine the work is ongoing. How do you personally sustain yourselves, given that you're often in this area of negative work? Sometimes there's glimmers of hope, but often there's hopelessness, Yep. How do you sustain your ministry, the day in, day out needs which confront you? Yeah.
I think one of the really interesting things, you mentioned Facebook before. There was a young man, 18 years of age, who posted on Facebook that no one cared about him, and so he was going to take his life. And on Facebook he posted, I'm now taking 2 of these tablets, 4 of these tablets, 3 of these tablets, 2 of these tablets. And someone actually intervened and said, I wish you would just die. You're wasting my time. An argument broke out on Facebook. Then this young man continued, 2 of this tablet, 4 of this tablet. On it went. 16-year-old girl come across this situation, and she amazingly, I don't know how she did it, but she got the address of this young man. While she had him on Facebook, she called the ambulance and police. They went to his house. They found him unconscious. They took him to hospital. This is just in Melbourne. Took him to hospital, had his stomach pumped. He received some good support at the hospital, and then he came into contact with our youth worker, Brad Ellis, the next night. So Brad and I met with this young man. He was showing us all of his Facebook posts. And I said to him, why did you do this? He said, because no one cares about me. No one has told me that they love me in my entire 18 years of life. I said, why on earth did you post on Facebook? Why did you do that? And he said, I did it because it was my one last shot at trying to find out if anybody actually cared about me and loved me. And in that place, Brad embraced him, and it was very, very moving, and Brad said, we love you, we care about you. Now this young guy is fully involved in a band that Brad started with Andrew Licks, one of our other youth workers, called Young Nation Soldiers. And all of a sudden, he's a completely different young man. And we've got him into some housing, and I went and visited him just the other day, and it was very, very moving to see just a few weeks ago this young man, was almost dead at the age of 18, and now he's had this intervention of some people that really care about him and really love him. We see this young guy back on his feet, doing something really good with his life and actually loving life. And I see that stuff, and I get inspired, and I think, we can actually make a difference. We can actually literally save lives and add meaning and purpose to life. That inspires me, and I think the thing that inspires me sort of underneath all of that is the example of Jesus. And for me, I find my prayer life is very, very important around just being fed by the Spirit of God. I think that's critical. And I think Salvation Army history absolutely inspires me. And, Salvation Army with William Booth was one of the first agencies in the world to actually introduce a suicide prevention bureau back in the 1890s. And so, these guys did some amazing stuff, and they're our forebears. They've set the standard for us. And I think sometimes when we think, it can't be done now, it was done in the past, why can't it be done now? And the thing about these guys back in the early days of the Salvation Army was they saw a need, and no matter what the cost, personally or corporately, they went and met that need. They didn't allow bureaucracy to get in the road. They didn't allow other people's agendas to get in the road. They went and met that need, and they actually saved lives, and they got people back on their feet, leading productive lives again. I find that stuff incredibly inspiring. That's the stuff that keeps me going.
And Lauren, you would have witnessed that same sort of thing, I imagine, the heart-wrenching stories, but the hope that comes in, and that helps you, sustains you.
Yeah, I think it's just making sure that we've got a fantastic team around us that continually, feeds information, inspires each other, with some of those good news stories, but also, I guess, looks at the emerging issues and how we can band together to be able to create a solution. And I think that's something Brendan's taught us all, that the answer's never, no, we can't do it. It's how can we do it? How are we going to make this happen? And I think, it makes us inspired to be able to look outside the box and see who we can get to help us create a meaningful solution to some of these problems.
Thank you. Well, you've hit on something that I think is relevant to all of our audience, that we should perhaps be able to discuss such things in a meaningful way. How do you think, either of you, that we can do better at discussing these taboo subjects, being a voice for others, enabling the voices of oppression and hopelessness to be heard, should we be doing more about this? How can we do it? I mean, in a nutshell, obviously we can't spend a long time on that, but is it difficult? Is it simple? You know?
I think education and awareness, I guess, goes a long way into it.
Yes,
Yeah, I think, like, for example, the Four Corners interview brought up some really interesting stuff around, maybe how you approach some of these issues. So, for example, with the new Transit Teams program that we're doing, we're getting all the volunteers to get involved in suicide prevention training that, it kind of basically teaches you in a nutshell to ask those really tough questions around suicide, ask people if they're okay, and be really, forthright about it in a proactive way, and that being potentially the way to go about it. So, informing young people about maybe some changes around that stuff and what they can do themselves, even if it's friends, family, themselves, and then the broader community as part of that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
I think Lauren's really hit the nail on the head around education. It was the German theologian Karl Barth that said we should all read the newspaper every day, have that in our left hand, and in the right hand have the Bible, and God will speak to us about how we should respond as Christians to current social issues. I think the education's critical.
Thank you.
But I think it's about actually getting out of the four walls of our office or the four walls of our church and actually coming face to face with the need. And when you see it, when you're confronted with it, when you hear the stories, personally, that's what stirs your heart, and that's what makes you think, I can't just sit here anymore and do nothing. I have to do something. I can get away with doing nothing when I sit in an office. When I get out on the street and I get confronted with the stories and the need and the sheer hell that some young people are going through, I can't sit quiet. I've got to do something. And I think I really want to encourage people to get out of the church, get up off their knees from praying. We've got to pray, but it's more than prayer, it's action as well. And actually get out, get confronted by the need, and God will stir your heart to do something, and He'll direct us as well.
Thank you so much, both of you, today. It's been wonderful. I think that we are partners in dispensing hope, all of us, and that hope is practically shown by Jesus Himself.
Absolutely.
How He did it. He got out there.
Yep.
So you too can do that in the spirit of Jesus and be a partner in giving out that hope and the change of life that is so much needed. You can continue to join in this conversation and give us your thoughts on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Just Salvos. Thank you, guests, for coming and sharing with us today. It's been wonderful to have you. Thank you for taking that time out. And thank you, audience, for your sharing in this episode today. We look forward to your participation in the future. If anything that you have heard today has touched something within you and you feel you would like to do some follow-up, please make contact through the web at places such as Lifeline, Beyond Blue and Headspace. And may God bless you as we continue to engage, continue to be involved in this very important sector of our society.